Magic fans, one of the most fun and interesting times of the entire NBA season is approaching us right before our very eyes. This upcoming Thursday, February 8th at 3 p.m. Eastern, the NBA trade deadline officially is going to conclude. And the Magic, they have been linked and rumored to a lot of different players following up this year's NBA trade deadline. And I don't know how true each one of those rumors are, but I do know that the Magic should go out there and try to make a move that's going to put some nice complementary pieces around their two stars, Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner. I don't expect the Magic front office to go out there and try to make a splash for a guy like a Deonte Murray or even a Colin Sexton, but I do, like I said, expect them to go out there and try to get some shooting around their guys, and that's going to lead me into this point. We have to address the Magic's strengths and weaknesses. The strength of this Magic team, while they currently sit with a record of 27-23, they're 7th in the Eastern Conference. This team has relied upon their defense and being a defensive-minded team first. Jamal Mosley has brought that culture and identity into this team and has instilled it into the culture, and they have all bought in. Offensively and specifically, when you talk about shooting, that is where this team struggles. And in a modern 2024 NBA era where shooting is at an all-time high, you absolutely need to do a better job of spacing the floor, especially around your two stars. I will consistently bring that point up because it's the honest truth. The Magic, when you look at their offensive numbers, they are 28th, bottom 3 in the entire association in three-point percentage. You need to do a better job addressing that. Secondly, they are 25th in points per game, and they are 20th in field goal percentage. Now, a lot of that had to do with having guys consistently in and out of the lineup. The Magic were obviously derailed for an extended period of time of no Wendell Carter, no Markelle Fultz. Other guys had injuries. Nonetheless, the Magic know that they need to address shooting, and that's exactly what we're going to talk about here in today's video. Now, there's 5 players that I want to talk about here in today's video. I don't want to be too long-winded, and I don't want to spend too much time on each guy. So let's go ahead and start with the first player, Trent Jr. from the Toronto Raptors. This is a guy I think the Magic could definitely lowball and get at a reasonable price. And I also want to say PSA, any of these trades that I've mocked up, take it with a grain of salt. Of course, I'm not a general manager. This is why I don't work in a front office. And of course, I want to try to lowball these teams in order to get a good player so that the Magic can have the better end of the deal. But back to Trent Jr. He's in the last year of his 3-year contract right now. He will be an unrestricted free agent at the end of the season. He currently has an $18.5 million cap hit this upcoming season. In 44 games for the Toronto Raptors, in 14 games he's only started, he is averaging 12-2-1 on 43, 42, 65 splits. Now, Trent Jr. is a very solid and reliable shooter, obviously from his time in Portland to his time in Toronto, etc. He's been a very good role player, and I think he can be a great fit, obviously, alongside Banchero, Franz Wagner, and the rest of this team. He's a guy that can handle the ball, come off pick-and-roll situations, spot up, shoot, catch and shoot, anywhere you need him to do. He can do it on the floor on all 3 levels. I think Trent Jr. would be a great guy at a very low value that you could acquire that could help alleviate some of that pressure off of guys like Banchero and Wagner in order to add that shooting to the team. Now, what would it take to get a Trent Jr.? Of course, I'm speculating, but I'm sending off Gary Harris and a 2025 second-round pick via Boston or Memphis. Now, getting into my player number 2, let's talk about another shooter, a guy who's one of the best in the association, if you ask me, Luke Canard from the Memphis Grizzlies. I think this move makes all too much sense for the Magic, which is probably why they won't do it. Now, Luke Canard does have a $14.7 million club option next season. I would assume that if the Magic are going to trade for him, they are absolutely going to exercise that club option. He's a younger guy who's still got a lot of great basketball ahead of him. And of course, the Magic could work out a long-term deal in order to lock up a shooter to put around their team in order to help alleviate some of that pressure. Now, what has Luke Canard done for the Memphis Grizzlies this season? In 23 games, because he's been a little bit banged up, he's averaging 10, 3, and 3 on 43, 44, 89 splits. Let me say that again. He's shooting 44% from deep and 43% from the field. He's doing a better job of shooting from behind the arc than he is from the field. Impressive stuff. And of course, Luke Canard is a career 43.7% shooter from deep. The way that Magic fans saw Sam Merrill from the Cleveland Cavaliers just absolutely light up our team from behind the arc, that's exactly the type of shooting that Luke Canard could provide for this team. Now, when it comes to an actual trade, of course, I'm going to lowball the Memphis Grizzlies in order to try to get Luke Canard here to Orlando. I'm giving up Gary Harris yet again. a 2024, and a 2026 second-round pick. Now, getting into my third player, let's talk about Caris LeVert from the Cleveland Cavaliers. He has quietly put together a very good season for this Cleveland team, especially in the absence of Darius Garland. His role has been increased significantly, and Caris LeVert has done a good job of putting together, like I said, a good season, something that we haven't really seen from him consistently since his days in Brooklyn. Now, Caris LeVert is in the first year of a 2-year, $32 million contract. Let's put that into its proper perspective. But Caris LeVert this season for the Cavs in 37 games, he is averaging 15, 3, and 4 on 42, 34, 75 splits. He has put together a very good season, and he could be a guy that could really take some of that ball pressure away from Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner, depending on how he wants to get mixed up into the rotation in minutes. I think Caris LeVert is a guy who can score on all three levels. He's shown that he can be a capable and reliable shooter from deep, and a guy who can, like I said, alleviate a lot of that pressure. Of course, I'm going to lowball the Cavaliers. This deal probably would not go through, but Gary Harris in a 2024 and 2026 second-round pick, like I said, that deal might not go through, but of course I want the better end of the deal. Now let's talk about two more players that the Magic should try to acquire at this year's deadline, or at least make an attempt to acquire, and that's going to come with guard from the Indiana Pacers, Buddy Hield. Now, to me, in my personal opinion, Buddy Hield is absolutely one of the greatest shooters in the history of basketball and one of the most underrated shooters in the entire NBA, the entire history of the NBA. Buddy Hield has been a phenomenal three-point shooter throughout his career, and he still has a lot of great basketball ahead of him. In 51 games this season for the Indiana Pacers, Buddy Hield is averaging 12, 3, and 2 on 44, 38, 85 splits. He is a career 40% shooter from deep, but Indiana, let's be honest, they probably would not trade him at this year's deadline because they just traded for Pascal Siakam. They're trying to make a deep Eastern Conference playoff run, and also, if they were going to trade Buddy Hield, who is in the last year of his deal, they're not going to trade him to someone that they're competing with in the Eastern Conference seeding-wise, like the Orlando Magic. But of course, it's just fun to speculate, especially if you can get a great shooter like Buddy Hield to pair up with Banchero and Franz Wagner. Now, what am I giving up in order to get Buddy Hield? I'll actually give up two players in this deal. I'll give up Chuma Okeke, I'll give up Gary Harris, and I'll give up our 2024 second-round pick, an expiring deal for Buddy Hield. You can make a late playoff push and add some shooting to this team, and I would assume that if you're going to trade for Buddy Hield, which probably won't happen, you would sign him to a long-term deal. And the last name that we're going to talk about for the Magic to potentially acquire at this year's deadline is a very popular name in the community. It's going to come with Washington Wizards guard Tyus Jones. Now, Tyus Jones has quietly put together a very good season for the Wizards, who are one of the bottom feeders in the entire association. He started 49 games this season, all 49 for the Wizards, and he's averaging 12, 6, and 3 on 49, 39, 76 splits. Tyus Jones has done a very good job throughout his career as being a ball handler, a guy who can facilitate and help run an offense. Tyus Jones is a very good point guard. Do I think he really takes this team over the top? No. Do I think he's that much more of an upgrade than a Markelle Fultz? Not really. Now, does he provide a lot more stability when it comes to the shooting and spacing the floor? Of course he does. But how much does Tyus Jones really make this team much better? I don't know if he makes this team that much better, especially if you have to give up a Markelle Fultz, which I wouldn't in that kind of deal. Like I said, Tyus Jones, from his time in Minnesota to Memphis and now in Washington, has been a very good guy. Not a huge fan of trading for him, but I don't think he's the worst guy you could go out there and trade for, because I would rather have someone that is a pure sniper out there on the three-point line, even though he is shooting 39% from behind the arc this season. Now, what am I giving up to get Tyus Jones if I'm the Magic? I'm giving you Gary, I'm giving you Chuma, and I'm giving you a 2024 second. Yet again, like I said, I'm going to lowball all of these teams and hopefully get the better end of the deal. And just for fun, I'm going to throw out two more names for the Magic to potentially acquire at this year's deadline, even though the likelihood of it happening is slim to none. Let's talk about Deonte Murray briefly and Colin Sexton. With Deonte Murray, this is a very controversial name. He is still an all-star caliber player. While his defense may have slipped up from his time in San Antonio, he's still a very good guard. He's obviously killed the Magic in every single matchup this season. And Deonte Murray, he is going to be on an expensive, I believe, 4-year, $114 million contract. I believe that's going to kick in next season. I didn't do my research on that, so just take it with a grain of salt. DeJounte Murray is a very good guy. I do think, honestly, him and Banchero have a good relationship despite what the media say. I've met DeJounte Murray personally. I've talked with him. He's a great guy. Every interview I've seen with him, he seems like a very humble guy, a very down-to-earth guy, and someone that you would want in your locker room. Now, like I said, whatever the media says, that's a whole nother thing. I'm telling you from my personal experience. Plus, him and Banchero are both from the PNW. These guys go back to kind of their high school days. I could see that kind of working out. Now with Colin Sexton, this guy has really raised his value in these last 25 games, helping get the Utah Jazz back on track, and Colin Sexton has been phenomenal. You're going to have to give up not only a decent amount to get him, definitely more than a first, maybe a player or two. You're going to have to also pay the Danny Ainge tax, where Danny Ainge is going to absolutely always get the better end of the deal. Colin Sexton would be a great fit alongside Paolo, Banchero, and Franz Wagner. Bring some of that intensity to this team, kind of like what we see from Jalen Suggs. He can space the floor. He can obviously get downhill, score on all three levels. He will facilitate. He's a very good player, and I do think that the Utah Jazz would absolutely not even take a call for him. But it's always fun to speculate. Magic fans, I want to know your guys' thoughts in the comments down below. Out of these 5 to 7 guys that I talked about here today, who are some names that you would want to see acquired by the Magic, and do you think that they actually will go out there and make a deal at the deadline? Let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments down below. If you guys enjoyed today's video, make sure you guys go ahead and drop me a thumbs up. Hit the subscribe bell to stay tuned for more Orlando Magic content that we do here on YouTube. And make sure you guys also go ahead and follow me, Brett James, and Orlando Magic HQ on all of our socials, especially on Twitter. We're both very active and we're on there every single day. The link tree will be in the description down below so that you guys can go ahead and check that out. But Magic fans, thanks again for sticking around throughout the whole video. Brett James, aka BJ, I'm out, y'all. And like always, let's go Magic.